Hi. Everything okay?
Hey guys, this is Justin at the Survivor Review, and continuing my look at the Phantasm franchise, today we'll be talking about the third movie in the series, Phantasm III, Lord of the Dead. Now, if you thought the series was weird already, it's about to get a lot weirder. Because, like I said in my last video, Universal didn't want to pursue this franchise anymore. Though I was kind of wrong. They didn't completely wipe their hands clean of the series. They did actually distribute Phantasm 3 when it was released on home video, because the movie was made independently and released straight to video. Which means Don Coscarelli was able to do whatever he wanted again, just like the original, and was able to make the movie as weird, surreal, strange as he wanted it to. This movie is a good mixture of the original's weird strangeness and the second one's straightforward, more linear storyline. Because this movie has a more linear storyline than the first film, but it goes back to having all those out there elements that the original had, which is just wonderful. The plot of this movie, it begins right where the second one ended. And of course it's revealed that Reggie's still alive. He didn't die, although it looked like he did, but of course he's still alive. And the tall man's minions, the dwarves, had already gotten to Liz and killed her. And Reggie ends up saving Mike from the tall man. Mike ends up getting put into a coma, and after being in the coma for a while, Mike ends up waking up, and him and Reggie continue their hunt for the tall man. This is where they come across a sphere that turns out to be Mike's brother, Jody. Because for some reason the tall man has captured Jody in that sphere. So they have a good sphere on their side. Until the tall man comes in and almost destroys Jody's sphere. Just turns Jody's sphere into this charred sphere and takes Mike. So the rest of the movie follows Reggie on the hunt for the tall man and going to rescue Mike in the process, as he come across some other interesting characters, including this one kid named Tim, who the tall man has killed his entire family, and now he's on his own, and this female character named Rocky, who's pretty much a badass. And they're working together to finally try to defeat the tall man for good. Now, with Don Coscarelli having complete control over the film, he was able to bring back Michael Baldwin as Mike from the original film, whereas he wasn't able to reprise the role in the sequel. And that's really nice having him back. Though, I'm not gonna lie, his acting is not the strongest.
Why? What do you want me? Why?
Though it's nice seeing him back, and I love having the entire cast from the original back and throughout the rest of the series. I really like that element. Sometimes his acting was a little off and a little stiff. Also, that I'm not too big on the use of Mike in the storyline. Mike is like the main character of this series, basically. And he gets taken away by the tall man at the beginning and is not in the movie for the whole middle half. That being said, that's when Reggie takes over, and the movie basically becomes the Reggie show, and you really can't go wrong with that because it's Reggie. He's such a great character that when he kind of turns into the main character of the movie, you're just like, yeah, okay, I can watch that. I can watch the entire movie of Reggie, so that's okay. But then once Mike comes back into the storyline later on, he still doesn't really do a whole lot. He's just kind of a side character to Reggie. I don't know, I just felt that Mike was very underused, and I just felt weird to take the main character of the series and really do nothing with him, even when he's in it. Well, until the end. Some stuff happens with him near the climax of the film that will lead into the next film. But aside from that, I just don't really care for the way Mike is used in this movie. And then there's some stuff in this movie that doesn't really work. The introduction to the character of Tim is a really fun scene, but it feels like it's from a totally different movie. Because while Reggie's on the road, he ends up getting captured by these three people, these three kind of thug-like characters, and they end up stopping off at this house while Reggie is locked up in the trunk. And when they go in, it basically turns into like a mini Home Alone movie, except with actual murder and death. Or using these weird Home Alone type traps, he ends up killing all three of those people. And it's a fun, weird sequence, but it feels just kind of like out of place in a Phantasm movie. It just seems really kind of random. Tim is basically like a mini Mike. You could even tell because they have him wear clothes similar to what Mike wore in the original film. And he's basically Reggie's partner throughout the movie. And I really like the Tim character. I think he's a fun addition to the series that has more to him than, say, the Liz character from the second one, which was basically just like a shoehorned in love interest. I like Rocky. I like Rocky's interaction with Reggie and how Reggie just keeps trying to sleep with her for the entire movie and it never works. It's hilarious just how this is our main hero of this movie, is Reggie, who is just like this like schlubby kind of guy who for the entire movie is trying to get into this girl's pants. And it's hilarious. And like that's one of the things just adds to the character of Reggie, just makes him really entertaining. And another thing that doesn't work with this movie is some of the humor. This movie tends to overdo the humor sometimes, and it's very hit or miss. One of the elements I really don't like is that those three characters who I mentioned that Tim kills, they do come back later in the movie as some of the Tall Man's minions. And what were Tall Man's minions in the previous movies? You have the little dwarfs, you had those guys at the mortuary, and then you all of a sudden have these three characters, which are now zombies, basically. I know it's kind of weird saying that something is out of place in a series like Phantasm, where everything is so over the top and crazy, but I don't know, I feel like them as zombies just doesn't work with Phantasm in general, and I don't really care for that, and they were just a little silly, especially near the ending of the movie when Reggie and them are being chased around by these characters. It's like, it just didn't really work for me. But that aside, I actually do enjoy this movie quite a bit, despite it not being as good as the first two. It has its flaws. Again, I do kind of like the combination of the weird out there stuff and the straightforward narrative. It's great bringing back the character of Jody from the original movie, despite the reason for him being back being just out there that like, now he's a sphere. Because why not, I guess? We get a bit more explanation, a bit more delving into the mythology. In this one you reveal that the spheres actually have brains in them. So basically the brains of the dead people are harvested into spheres, and the bodies are smushed into the dwarves to be the minions on the Tall Man's world, and the Tall Man is putting all this together in order to conquer other dimensions. Crazy, but I like it. It's good. It's an expansion of the mythology. Also speaking about expanding mythology, the spheres play a huge role in this movie. They're a lot bigger part of this movie, including stuff where there's a ton of them. There's this awesome looking shot where it's a low-angle shot of the Tall Man and just a ton of spheres all around him. It's a really crazy shot. It's really awesome. And one of the things about this franchise in general is kind of its disregard of side characters, which also happens at the beginning of Phantasm IV, which I'll get to when I get to that. But if you actually like the character of Liz in Phantasm II, which I was kind of indifferent to her, I didn't feel she was necessary to the story, but she was okay in the movies. She gets killed off immediately. It's almost like Newton Hicks in Alien 3. Basically, where it's just like, oh yeah, she's dead. All of a sudden you see like a dwarf just like eating her face. And if you actually liked her character and was interested in seeing her continue in the series, you'd be pretty disappointed with that. And I wouldn't blame you, that is kind of sucky, especially if that happens to a really good character. But to me, I'm kind of like, yeah, just go with it, because this is that kind of series. We just kind of go with anything it does, because this is just weird and all over the place. This movie looks really good for being an independent straight-to-video movie. It still feels like a good actual theatrical production. It's not as polished or as high quality as Phantasm II, but it definitely has a good amount of like really good looking effects, a lot of good set pieces that are fun. Seeing this awesome car stunt where this hearse flips, and it looks just as good, if not better than stuff in theatrical productions. It looks amazing. Though I don't think this movie's as good as the first two, despite going back to some of the elements that I loved about the first one. Just that I think some of the humor again fell out of place. And then the story seemed a little disjointed with the starting out with like Mike and Reggie, and then all of a sudden Mike's gone, now it's Reggie on his little adventure. Nope, now Mike's back. And again, I'm not a fan of the use of Mike's character in the film. I just thought that could have been handled a lot better. I liked seeing Jody back, despite the really nonsensical explanation for that. It's still an entertaining movie that I would recommend people to watch. It's just not great. So, out of 10, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Still a really fun movie. I mean, it stars Reggie as the main character, basically. You can't go wrong with that. Every time he's on screen, it's hilarious. Still great effects, good expansion of the story, actually exploring some mythology more. I really like that. And just an overall entertaining experience, despite it not being up to par with the first two films. Still definitely worth checking out, and a solid entry into the series. So with Phantasm III demonstrating the series works a lot better being independent and doing its own thing, Don Coscarelli and crew followed it up a few years later with what seemed like at the time the final chapter, Phantasm IV: Oblivion, and I'll be talking about that one next time. So until then, I'll talk to you guys later.